Mikey,
Yo, finally back.
what's going on? I know,
It's great,
finally.
it's great seeing you. I haven't really been missing you because we spent the weekend hanging out together.
I know it's
So
kind of
it's not like
crazy.
we haven't been seeing each other.
I
But
know
it's
it's
good to
crazy.
see all of you guys that are in the audience, whoever's here
Yes,
to join
welcome
us.
everyone. Welcome. Yes, I have spent the last 5 days with you, Mikey. 4 days with you.
Yeah. Yep. And I've been off
So,
my phone, so you guys have gone without seeing me as well, which is probably new.
I, right? Because I mean, ultimately, it's just been a hangout. It was actually very nice to finally get to see you in person.
No, yeah, it was awesome. It was really great. That was
Yeah.
you hanging out with like you and True and Brian was probably like the ultimate highlight to like my like
Yes.
meetup time.
It was amazing. I'm glad we did it, and I'm gonna come back and visit you, or I'll just bring you to Washington, and then you can go visit some of your old peeps. So it is. No, that's what we're doing. Mikey, can we talk about tell the people what we're gonna talk about, and then I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna say something about it. Go ahead.
All right. So, real quick, everybody can have a little bit of time to celebrate if you have not heard 12 of the amendments that were put forth in the World Health Organization pandemic preparedness plan that we had reported to you guys about. 12 of them were struck out of the 13. The only one that remained was the one around the amount of time that a certain country would have to be able to deny the help from the World Health Organization. They dropped it from 12 months to now 6 months. So like that's not it's not a necessarily overall great win, but it's not like, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not like everything we wanted. They still got something through, but it's definitely something that we can kind of like take a little bit of a deep breath that it's not like they didn't take all fucking control.
And you know what? And I think that's a positive. And I do think that the amount of people who spoke up on their social media and like the word getting out and kind of sliding under the radar is why that happened.
Right.
So what? So I'm sorry. Go ahead, continue because there's more. That's not what we're going to talk about.
Right. I did just want to kind of touch on that. But yeah, the main thing of what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be addressing the Uvalde incident. We are going to be kind of going through the sequence of events that, what effectively like not necessarily led up to it, but how like the amount of money that the kid spent on everything that he had, how he could have possibly done that with his employment that he had had prior to that and being unemployed in the time. We're also going to go through some things that are very questionable about, departments like Uvalde Police Department has ceased the cooperation within the investigation. So we'll just kind of be going through the in and outs of that incident today.
So did you see their spokesperson they brought in today?
Yes, I did.
Mm,
Matthew McConaughey, Mr. All right, all right, all right.
yeah.
Yep. But
Now,
it's not far off the realm, right? It's like what the Simpsons showed in that episode where they're like, I think they were talking about like I can't remember what it is, but Smithers or Mr. Burns was doing something with like his radioactive plant, and they bring Tom Hanks in
hmm
to talk about it, and they're like, yeah, so anytime that the government loses any kind of legitimacy, they just bring me in because I'm able to, everybody knows me being Tom Hanks, I can, keep people docile. That's what they say in the episode, and it's very much reflective to what they do in real life, because they had Leonardo DiCaprio speak at the United Nations, I think it was a year ago or 2 years
hmm
ago, about climate change, and
so
now you
what
have
I find to be
McConaughey.
interesting is why the celebrities? Do they think that if they speak, we listen?
I think a good majority, I mean, actually, I don't want to say a majority. I would just say like the leftist base, which is definitely not a majority, but the leftist base definitely, they still have the problem with idolization. I mean, I'm still running into this with people with the whole Johnny Depp trial, right? I was trying to talk to one of my conservative friends, and I was like, yeah, I was like, but it's still fuck Johnny Depp, no matter what the outcome of the trial was. And he was like,
Right.
what? How could you say that? And I was like, bro, I was like, he called for the assassination on Trump, and he's also in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas talking about taking adrenochrome. Like, weird. Like, that's fucking weird. And then he was like, oh, it's just a movie. That's a conspiracy theory. Unless you can prove Johnny Depp's a bad person, I don't want to hear it. And it's like, you idolize these people, and it's just because of the personas in which that they have put in front of you in these roles that they play, to where, because the thing with like movies, with acting, is when you're watching a movie, you're being hung in the middle of disbelief and reality, right? They have you hanging in the middle right there, where you don't really know what's real and what you can't believe. And so and that's what gives it that feeling of being immersed inside the movie. But with that comes emotional attachments, and a point where people will look and perceive these people in their roles and put themselves in their shoes in their own lives and think, oh, I can relate to this person, right? Meanwhile, the whole
Well,
thing
yeah,
is a facade.
I feel like it's like you know them, but you don't, right?
Right.
So it's a celebrity. So it's like, oh, it's a familiar face. Oh, it's a familiar voice. It's just familiar to you. You
Right.
know them, but you don't know them. His acting wasn't very good today, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so we're gonna move on from it. I just find it very interesting that you know, and they pointed out to say that he's a gun owner, and that
Of
type of
course.
situation,
Of course. And of course you get the
and so
southern of course you get the southern actor to come in, and with his southern draw, to talk about how
that's where he was
you
born, Mikey. So we have to give him that. That's where he was
No, I
born.
know, but that's what I'm saying though, is that it all works though. That's why they chose him, is because
Right.
it fits the image and the sound of the exact audience that they want to try to reach. Or it also makes these leftists be like, oh, look, you have this, you look, Matthew McConaughey is saying, even he grew up in the South and he's saying that we should do this, right?
Right.
It gives them that kind of position, even though it's false, right? It's
Yeah.
completely fallacious. They still feel like they are empowered by that.
All right. Well, start it up for me. Cue it up. Where do you want to start?
All right. I guess the first part to start would be that there were a lot of warning signs about this um, you know, uh criminal before the shooting occurred. Salvador Ramos was he was threatening to commit violent acts at schools a year prior to him doing what he did at Uvalde. He was over social media, on like French social media
Mhm.
apps, bragging about mass school shootings and like rape, and then like threatening rape and things like that, right? So he was just running around very vehemently, showing these kind of signs. And then something that I found very interesting was with him being flagged for making threats towards schools a year prior. When
Mhm.
that happens, you're automatically added to a list, and your
Right.
family becomes scrutinized at the highest levels by the intelligence departments. And so it's really interesting to think that he had to be in communication with some federal agents at some point. They had to have communicated to him and been like, hey, we want to do like they do like a home check, or like a,
Right.
check on him to see how he is as a citizen or a person. um and it's really hard to believe that there wasn't any kind of, like, there wasn't anything that they would have been able to see, like any red flags or anything like that. And so what that kind of goes to is like this commonplace, everybody get their tinfoil hats on, this commonplace theory that there could be more of a even more nefarious nature to these atrocious incidents that happen, with them actually being organized by our government as to push for gun control and ways to disarm the populace.
So, with that being said, we know that you can't just type crazy things into the internet and it not come back on you.
Right,
Okay. We've
right.
seen that with some of our fellow TikTokers who got caught up on the January 6th for
Hmm.
statements that they made on social media. So we know they're always watching. Now, what I find to be interesting is he was doing all of this, yet he wasn't red flagged anywhere. So, like,
Right.
if you have a certain last name or a certain name and you go to purchase a firearm, guess what happens? It'll flag you. and then they'll pull it and hold it longer and do like a more thorough, as opposed to like, Johnny Gunsmith, walks in and it just goes like right through, right? No
Right.
problem. 5-10 minutes later, your background clears and you're out of there. And
Yeah.
so I find that to be very, very interesting that he was not flagged anywhere, nowhere.
Right. And then on top of that too, with the purchase, where is a 19-year-old getting, or was he 19 or 18?
18, yeah, something like that.
18.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right.
teenager.
He just turned 18. Yeah.
Right.
Where does an 18-year-old get $9,000 to spend on 2 guns, ammunition, the scopes on the guns, and a tactical vest? Where do they
Okay,
get
so let's talk about it.
for working at Wendy's as
Right.
well and then being
Yeah,
unemployed?
I mean, well, maybe he saved all his Wendy's money for the past year. I mean, it might equate to $9,000. I'm just saying. We'll play devil's
Right.
advocate. My thing
Right.
is this, though. Those firearms, it's not something that you learn to use properly in a day, right? So it's not like you walk in, you buy it, you learn how to load it, you learn how to use it in a day, right?
Right.
So my question is, if he was unfamiliar with firearms, the way his family was saying he doesn't know how to shoot, he doesn't know how to drive, he doesn't know how to this. I mean, maybe that's why he crashed, because he don't know how to drive. How did he know, right?
Right.
How do you know?
Right.
Because when you're not familiar with guns, it's not instinctive to know how to load a gun, right? It's
Right.
not instinctive to know how to put bullets in a gun. So maybe they taught him at the gun. Maybe they taught him. Because I did hear something that that particular place, wherever it was bought from, was connected in other from whatever store or whatever. I did hear something like that. That there was something else, somebody else or something else was bought also in that same store. And I could be wrong. There's so much nonsense going on because everything now, mass shooting, mass shooting, mass shooting. Every breaking news.
Literally. No,
All
yeah.
weekend long. Huh?
Have you been seeing that? Every
Yes.
headline is talking about like
Every heading is talking about mass shooting. Every heading is talking about mass shooting. And before this, the same mass shootings were happening. We just didn't hear about it.
and now it's the same thing with COVID. People were always getting sick, but now we're reporting every single person with the sniffles.
Yes.
We're calling it this.
Yes.
And oh my God.
Yep. So it's just if you say where did he get $9,000, I'll say let's just say he saved it.
Right.
Okay. We'll say he saved it. So he walks in, he buys $9,000 stuff. Okay. Now what? According to his family, he doesn't even know how to use it. According to his family, he doesn't know how to drive. So how do we get there?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Also, why did he decide to drive past 2 schools on his way to Robb Elementary School?
Does he have a connection to that school in any way?
Actually, that I should have looked that up. Actually, I don't
think I've heard anything.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody say that he has any ties to it.
But and I only asked because you just said why did he choose to drive by 2 schools on his way to that school? Which school was supposed to be the school that was locked down because of the shooting.
Right, and it was in the school district that had just been given
the
school shooter training 2 months prior at the high school.
So you see that? Did you see the thing too where Marlon, Marlon, our friend Marlon, he posted the video about like the 2 different dads for the same child?
Yep. Crisis actors. I also I can try to pull up the video too. There was like a 10-second clip after that like when the shooting was like occurring, the news was like doing, how they do like the camera angle changes to just like random things when they get in reporting. Well, they do a camera angle change and there's a deputy car driving off in the distance, but then there's a pickup truck parked on the side of the road, and on the back window, blatant as all hell, is a like about this size Freemasonic sign on the back window of the pickup truck. It's a square and compass. really weird why they would decide to just pan and sit on that symbol for 10 seconds.
Well, it's kind of like movies, Coca-Cola, right? Product
Right,
placement.
right, right. And it's something that we see as a running theme too. I would implore people, anybody that's watching, when these incidences occur, and I'm talking about the ones that get the mass media attention. I'm not talking about the ones nowadays where they're reporting on all of the incidences, but look for the ones that get the big spotlight and pay attention to the interviews, all of the news footage from on the scene, and you tell me how many times you see people rocking square and compasses on their hats, wearing a necklace with a square and compass on it, all of those kind of things. They are always found around the scene. And
I
that
was,
is
but I was also waiting to see funeral coverage.
right, right. The funeral coverage of the children. Right.
Hmm.
That would be that, yeah. That would be another really big tell. Was there ever funeral coverage for Sandy Hook?
Um, Maybe I don't know. I don't know, but I mean, you know,
I just because you mentioned that it just
it
kind of
looks
hit my mind.
different now, right? It looks
Hmm.
different today because this is where we're at today. This
Right.
is where we're at with the narrative and the media. This is where we're at. So this particular thing now is the big deal because even in the Las Vegas shooting, where the guy shot out the hotel,
Yeah.
it was like we had the coverage for a few days and it went away. We didn't have actors showing up at the White House talking about gun control and all of that. We didn't have videos made by actors naming all the things off. We didn't have any of that.
Well, that's because they wanted well, I mean, for that incident, they wanted that to get brushed under the carpet very much because there was definitely more than just the active shooter within the hotel room. You
Oh,
know, we
okay,
got footage.
okay, one more time, but we didn't see that.
Right, right. No, yeah, 100%. I do 100% agree with you on that.
So what makes
Um,
this different? Because it's our children.
mm,
Because I saw a video where somebody was talking about, like, let me talk to your kids. That weirdo guy.
oh
Um,
yeah,
okay,
yes.
and so he was like, "How dare you say I'm a groomer, protect the kids when you don't want to protect the kids from getting shot?" Uh,
So that's their. So yeah. So like, I guess. I mean, it makes sense. Their new angle is that's just. I mean, it's what the Democratic side has always done, which is capitalize off of the tragedies or atrocities of other people and then to,
okay,
exploit
Mikey,
that.
but this isn't our first school shooting.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, okay, so yeah, so if we're talking with this one and in the sphere of society nowadays, it would be because there's just a really big push. Because, I mean, I think we can all agree we're in endgame. We are in the home stretch, whether it be a year from now, 6 months from now, whether it be 5 years to 10 years, we are in a home stretch. There is a countdown that is occurring currently, which is that they need to get certain things through. So they're going to be pushing for these things at a higher velocity than they would before, which is like this instance. I find it very convenient that they had no platform to run on 2 months ago. And now they have an unprecedented leak from the Supreme Court that they can stand on because now they can run on the platform of abortion. And
Mhm.
now they have an unprecedented school shooting that got more news coverage and worldwide coverage than others before as well, right? With I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure the highest death count. So it's the most it's considered to be the most atrocious or
Right.
tragic, right? So now they have these things to run on. I find it very convenient. And again, I also find it really convenient with, some of the details surrounding the incident. Like we now have information that the police knew that children were alive in the Uvalde school during the massacre, but still chose to do nothing. We know that children from in the school were placing calls
Yes.
to 911 for an hour's time
Yes.
begging, begging for people to go into the building and save them and did nothing, right? We know that the Uvalde Police Department has ceased all cooperation with the Department of Public Safety of Texas.
Correct.
They've ceased all cooperation. We know that the police chief was just, sworn into city
The
council
council.
while
Right.
currently refusing to comply with the state investigators.
Right. And
Right.
DPS
So,
does all the investigation.
what was that?
I said DPS does the investigation.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And so, and then we also have the what just came out recently, which was like a couple days ago or a few days ago. I sent it to you. The Uvalde mom who
Yes.
rushed inside the school to
Cool.
save her kids, and the police decided to threaten her with a probation violation if she
Right.
decided to speak to the media.
Right. I saw the video of her doing that too. Yeah. And why the silence, right? Why the silence? Who cares? Who cares if
Because
she speaks to the media?
because a
What do you have to
coordinated
hide?
because a coordinated attack with a narrative can't have any holes in it.
Well, it was too late for that. You don't stand outside for an hour.
Right. But that's their whole thing though, is that then now they're trying to play damage control, right? They
Oh.
expected they wanted this to hold water, but little did they know the bowl that they grabbed from the cabinet blindly was a cauldron. So good luck with that. You're not holding any water. It's running right through,
It's
right? So
running
now
right through.
they have to put these kind of fabrics around it to try and hold this water in, but it's not working because there's too many holes.
Okay. What's our next part of this? Because okay, so keep going because I want to say something, but I'll wait.
No, yeah, you're good. I was just gonna say that I mean I think the biggest thing that people need to do and that everybody needs to do their due diligence on is we need to keep high, high attention on this incident. Anytime that there's breaking news from it, anytime that we get any kind of information, whether it be a momentary headline that, if you see something that looks like it's gonna be pertinent information,
Yeah.
archive it. If you see it on the internet and it seems like it's going to be pertinent and needed later, archive that link. All you have to do is copy the link from your browser head, go to the Wayback Machine, and add it into the archive. It takes no time at all, and you are then giving that information to the entirety of the populace from archiving it on the internet. So people have to do that. And then another thing too, is people have to start looking into these shooters therapists. What kind of therapy were they in? Were they in any counseling? Who was their counselor? Find out who those people are. See if there was a relocation that happens in a certain amount of time after these incidences occur, right?
Okay.
Because there can be, right? There's only one way that if this was conspired, and if this, the theory in which that has been presented for years when it comes to these incidences of intelligence agencies using certain MK Ultra tactics or mind control tactics on people that are susceptible and that are on some psychotropic drugs, right, to commit
Hmm.
these acts, then the only way that that would be possible would be through a therapist or a middleman that is able to understand psychology, that would be able to implement those tactics. So if you find the therapist, which doesn't ever get any coverage, then you can find something that's a little bit more interesting that can lead you to other sections of, oh, well, who are they funded by, right?
Right.
What other people have they worked with? Have they worked with other shooters? Have they worked with other people that have committed atrocities? Things of that nature.
Well, what I also think that we need to start really paying attention to are families, right? So, like the families of these shooters, the things that they say, the things that they do, who they are, you know, because it's always very interesting that when these things happen, the family is quote unquote oblivious.
Right. They're always trying to hold the water for the
Yeah,
shooter. They're always
right,
trying to say, oh, don't blame them. They're not a monster. They didn't, because that's literally what his parents said. They said, don't
right.
call him a monster. You don't know him. They said that they wouldn't believe that their son had done this, all like that. Well, it gets to a point where it's like, I understand it's your kid, but when do you stop trying to hold the water for your child, right? It's like the same aspect of like Michael Myers. If your kid was Michael Myers, are you going to constantly be sitting there like, well, you can't really, he's not a killer. Yes, he is.
He is. Yes.
He objectively is. He is a
Well,
monster. He
but I
locked
think,
himself in a school and shot 19 children,
yeah, but I think
including.
that that's their way of minimizing, right? So you say, oh, he's not a monster. Then what is he? He walked into a school and he shot 19 innocent
Right.
children, teachers. Then what is he? If he's
Oh, he
not a
just needs
monster, what
help.
is he?
Oh, he just needs help.
Help with what? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what
Yeah.
does he need help with? Because
Right.
ultimately, if you really stop and you really think about it, that if you know your child, is not capable of these things, your child would not do these things.
Right.
Everyone has a sign, right? There's always something that will show you and lead you to what someone is saying or doing.
Right. Right.
And as a teenager who's living in your home, you mean to tell me that your kid wasn't doing some weirdo shit that you were like, what's going on with this kid?
Right. Well, there's videos on social media of Salvador Ramos with like bags of dead kittens and like blood in the bags. Like it's like, yo, like if he's posting this shit on social media, how does this not get back? Somebody, whether it be through the school, the city, the parents, his grandmother, literally anybody. How does all of that not happen? I mean, I know kids in when I was in high school that would make a comment that just sounded off and somebody would be notified. Like
Right.
like it does not, it doesn't correlate. It does not seem logical to me at all. It doesn't seem like there's any way that this makes sense.
But
There's
even
something
like these
happening.
manifestos,
What's up?
even like the manifestos, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like now we're privy, but no one else was ever. Like, it's
Well, don't
weird.
you, well, don't you love how the Buffalo Shooters Manifesto like effectively talks about the whole 13 bloodlines and all of that?
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? But it's in this other way of framework that makes it seem like it's this Nazi movement to talk against the elitist class and things like that. Isn't that just convenient for the
Yeah.
day and age that we're in right now?
Right.
Isn't that just
Because
perfect for?
because I always think about it's like a bad Lifetime movie, right?
Mm,
So it's like the person who episode of Snapped, real life, right? We can use that. And you plan this scenario, right? And it's not quite working out, but you have like this fake suicide note, like, right? So you leave all these fake clues to try to close in the circle so that it looks like this is what happens, but you
yep,
always forget a piece,
yep,
right? And
yep,
this is that same type of scenario, right? So there's all these pieces. So we first hear the school was on lockdown because of the shooting. We hear that there was training not but what 2 months ago. You know,
the teacher leaves the door open on
the
accident
teacher leaves the door open. Yeah, it closes, but it didn't lock. But why were you even out there if the school was on lockdown?
to grab her phone out of her car.
But
That
the
took her
school was,
10 minutes.
yeah,
10 minutes to grab your phone out of your car in a lockdown and then go back and leave the door propped open. It wasn't even not locked. It literally says propped open.
there was the armed cop, and that wasn't there. The security guy that wasn't there. They
Yep,
said
the
he was
security
there.
guard.
Yeah, he wasn't there. So it's just like all these little pieces, right? That just don't add up and don't make sense. So were you on lockdown or weren't you on lockdown? If you were on lockdown, why was she able to need to go get her phone? Like, how was that even important or relevant?
Yep,
There's this guy crashes his truck and the police are like, and then it's like border patrol comes and they show the guy's not even in uniform.
right, right. And then what was up with the original stories of saying that he was being chased? Remember,
Right.
the original narrative was that he was being chased, and that's why he crashed into the ditch.
Yes. I also heard that he had crashed into the school because I had received this video.
People said he crashed into yeah, they said that he drove his car into the school. I've heard that before too. Yep.
Yep. I've heard
What?
that. And there was this video. Did you see the video of him like on the outside of the school? Like the scene where like the cops were like running in and he was like on the outside. So like how did they not get him? You know what I'm saying? So like
Yep.
it just is weird to me. And they have on like helmets and like tactical gear. So like what was the problem?
Right. Well, this is and see, this is the thing that's really weird about it, which is like, and it's a really touchy thing because it's like I don't think everybody involved knew, right? Because that's normally not how these things work. You have to have plausible deniability, so you have to have certain people that are taking part in it that don't even know that they're taking part in it, right? So obviously you're going to have those police officers that were just quote unquote following orders from their chief, but then you're also going to have those that are in that environment that are aware of what the chief is calling for and are
Right.
going to be facilitating that as well. Because on top of the police chief calling the stand down, the person that was actually on the scene that was supposed to be facilitating like the breaching said that they believed that they had the suspect cornered and that there was no threat anymore, even though he was locked in an entire school filled with kids. And so he took it upon himself at that time to search for keys to get into the school, to look for keys
Okay, but
rather than breaching the doors.
yeah, and not only that though, but why did you need keys? Because if he could barricade himself into the room where you need a key to open it, why didn't the teachers just barricade themselves into the room?
Right. And like if you're gonna breach something, if you have to breach something, the option for keys is off the table because clearly if you're needing to breach, it's because the situation is dire and you don't have fucking time for that shit.
Well, we've kicked in doors for less things.
Right, you don't have time for the fucking Scooby Doo fucking 37 keys all looking
Yeah,
the same and you're flipping through the ring. No,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
Bust the like this is what baffles me like my mind is like police have been egregious in so many other situations where they didn't even need to be that aggressive or egregious, busting
Right.
in windows, fucking
Yes.
kicking in the back door, putting grandmama on the ground because crap getting sold in the house, like
Right.
all that kind of shit, right? But
Well,
they
that's what I'm
can't
saying. That
do
we
that
kicked down
here.
doors for less things.
Right. But they can't do that here where the most innocent of life is literally in imminent danger of fatal threat to them and they can't defend themselves. They're completely defenseless. And so the fact that they didn't go in there like gangbusters and the fact that they arrested 9 parents is crazy. They are detained. I guess I should say detained, not arrested, but detained 9 parents from trying to go in and even tased some parents.
Yes, I heard that.
That's inexcusable.
Well,
That's
and if you think about
absolutely
it too, right? If he's barricaded, like what I found to be interesting was why did he pick one classroom? And school shooters don't barricade themselves into anything. They just go in and they just keep shooting
right.
and they
Right.
keep moving. They don't stop moving.
Yep.
But he isolated himself. So there had to have been a point where there was no gunfire,
Yep.
where he stopped shooting.
Right. Well, what's also very convenient too is that one of the spouses of one of the teachers that died happened
Died.
to suffer a heart attack and died. Weird.
Yeah. They
I
said it was
wonder.
from heartache.
Right, right, right. Of course. Which is like obviously I'm not trying to be, insensitive to it because obviously I guess that could happen, but let's separate ourselves from the emotional angle of it
Right.
and look objectively
Correct.
at a questionable event that there's obviously a missing link to left and right can both agree that what happened is fucking wrong and it doesn't make any sense. Right? So there's a missing link in this event. And then on top of that, you have a person that is completely like they are completely out of the, you know, immediate circle of who was affected by the event, and they die as well, and it's by the notion of a heart attack, which is key point for our intelligence agencies. I mean, they went under the Senate in the, I think it was like the 70s, and
Mm-hmm.
admitted that they made a heart attack gun by
Yeah.
using pufferfish poison.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, and they literally admit that it would only, the only way that it would be recognizable is there would be just a small red little pinprick on somebody's skin that would only be able to be identified as somebody that would have known what the means of use of, or of, you know, lethal force that were used against them. That's the only way. It's a
Oh,
message, effectively.
okay, so you say that, but why would they do that? What would be the reasoning for having this happen?
I'm wondering if that teacher seen or heard something from that shooter, or maybe a, you know, piece of, maybe an earpiece or something of that nature that the teacher could have seen and easily communicated over the phone to her husband and said, hey, and then boom, because it was over the phone, easily able to be tracked by our intelligence agencies,
Right.
right?
And you,
And they could be at the door within 5 minutes of that phone call happening.
because what's also very interesting is that we haven't heard a lot from, like, we haven't seen parents, like, you know, two dads or whatever, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
We haven't
Well,
heard.
there was one parent, real quick. There was the one parent. I don't know if you've seen this. There was the mom that was, she was reading. She was reading what
Right.
she was saying about gun control. She was reading it on a piece of paper. What? So
You
wait,
know,
so your child dies in a tragic event, and your first notion is, let me type up a quick synopsis of why we need gun control in the country so I can deliver it on national news.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
What?
I think I think if we speak in real life, right? So let's speak in real life. I'm a parent, okay, of two. So when you speak
Three.
in the terms of real life, three, my bad. Sorry, Mikey. Uh, when you speak in the terms of real life, um, my instinct would have always been, and it always will be, you cannot fire upon or reload someone who is unloading on you.
Yep.
Both my children have their own homes. Both my children, you know, are doing their things. My gift to my children is protection. You get them before they get you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? From
Right.
that's my daughter and for my son. So when you say that, and that's your reality and that's your real life, I know that if I go out as someone who carries, if I go out into this world, if you know I'm carrying, chances are you're not going to walk up on me. You're not going to try anything because you're probably going to die in this scuffle.
Right. Right.
Right? So is it worth your life, right?
Right.
And so I think when you control, people are missing the entire point. If you took every law abiding citizen's gun away, every bad guy would still have one.
Yep.
Not only would they have one, they would wreak havoc.
Oh yeah. They'd
That's
have
why they,
multiple.
yes, that's why these fools who are warped and fucked up go into these gun free zones, because it's just like, you know, open, you know, it's like sitting in a tree stand and waiting for the deer to come to you. And the deer has no idea you're sitting there.
Yep.
And phew, you're out of here, right? It's
Yep.
defenseless. It can't do anything. It can't shoot back. All it can do is run away from you.
Right.
It's that same type of scenario.
Yeah, it's the same way as how like a lion awaits at a watering hole, where animals
Yes.
think that they're able, their defenses are down because they are
Yes.
getting water. They
Water.
could never expect it. And even if not a lion, a better example would be a crocodile.
Crocodile.
It's in the water. It's immersed in the environment
Yes.
within it where their defenses are down. And the second that they lean down to drink from that water,
Yeah.
the
They come out.
crocodile comes up and eats them.
It's like the
Exactly.
hippos. They can hold their breath forever
Yep.
underwater. Like
Yep.
30 minutes later, the hippo's still underwater waiting on you. Like, oh, let's just wait for the fool,
Right.
to come
Right.
swimming into the water, and then here comes the hippo. It's that
Right.
same type of scenario. So, like, what I find to be interesting is they're saying more steep, background, like making it stiffer and harder, right? Okay, but most psychopaths and lunatics, honestly, you don't know till you know, right? It's not like they
Right.
have this track record of, I don't know, what are we looking for? Counseling? You can't go into
Right.
people's medical records. So, what exactly do you think you're going to find out in someone's background if they've never committed a crime?
Well, isn't it just convenient too that the sequence of events has now changed, right? And at least the way that I've always thought of it is like most of the times when these shooting events would occur prior to like I would say prior to like 2020 when we were still in the 2010s, the 2010s, it was like the shooter would steal the firearm
Right,
from the law-abiding citizen within the
right,
household and then
right.
murder them and then go on their spree. But now it's just so, again, so convenient
That
for
they're
the
buying them.
narrative that now they're buying them and they're legally purchasing them. So now
Right.
it's no longer this separation between the two. It's a direct,
So I
you
want to
know.
talk about that too, right?
Mhm.
So if you're going to tell me someone legally purchased the gun, I want to see the record from the store. How do you know that they went in that store, and how do you know that they bought it? How do you know where it came from? So you trace this serial number, right? That this gun was sold here, right?
Right,
So why don't we ever get to see the records?
right, right. Why
How
why
do we not know? Did you pay cash? Did you pay with credit card? What happened? Right?
why is the gun store owners never interviewed?
Right. So
Why?
yeah. So like, Johnny Smith came into your store and purchased. Did he do it all at one time? Did he do it over the course of months? No, we don't even know the gun store. Like, we don't even know it's like Johnny Bananas. Like, we don't know anything, right? But
Right,
they
right,
tell you that this is the situation. They tell you that they were legally purchased, but they never show us from. They never tell us where. They never
right.
show us the information. They just tell us that.
Yep. It's never
So,
substantiated.
right. So I'm going to tell you guys that I'm a white man.
Okay, substantiate that.
I don't have to. I just told you.
I don't have to.
I said it out loud. It's fact. I
Right, right.
mean,
But
but
no,
does
yeah.
that make sense, right?
Mhm.
So when you think about the narrative, and you think about where they want to go, and you think about what they want to do, and you think about how they want to take our guns, it makes perfect sense that the gun was legally purchased.
Yep.
Because
That's
the
why I said
only
it.
way that it has an impact is it has to be done legally.
Yep. And that's why I said it's just so convenient that now these past two incidences, right? I don't know if the Brooklyn shooter, because they didn't really give that too much light. I don't know if the
Right?
Brooklyn shooter, purchased his gun legally because they didn't really, again, go into those details. But we
Right?
know for a fact the Buffalo and the Uvalde shooter did. I just find it very convenient that the two most emotionally pleading and also questionable events, because Buffalo has its own issues with the security guard that was trying to come out with the hydro-powered engine that gets killed in the store, and the video footage of the Buffalo shooter in the car before going in the store and watching that man walk into the store and said, "He's here, I'll be back," and gets out of the car.
Hmm.
So was it a hit, right? The opening scene to Jack Reacher, if anybody's seen that movie, the government hires a sniper to commit a mass shooting to cover up the assassination of one person.
Person.
and they shoot many different people of all different demographics. One was like, I believe one was a pregnant lady. One was like a couple that was just like celebrating their anniversary. All these different things that could give emotional pleas that would take people's eyes off of why that happened.
Well, and and it's interesting that you say that, because even today, when they had their actor in the White House, briefing us on why we should have better gun control, he even said that the exit wounds were so big from the AR that they couldn't just be, they had to have all this special stuff done to them, right? And again, like the video that I posted, I personally own I own a few. Well, I did own them. They're now in the lake. But
Right, there's no
but 40, I have a 45 and a 40 caliber Glock. The exit wounds on those are no joke.
right, right.
40 caliber is ridiculous. 45 will destroy you as well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when the bullet is moving, when you have a 22, it's so small, it's designed for hunting, so it's designed to pierce. So you got to hit it right, because if you don't hit it right, like large game can't even be hunted with a 22, because you can't stop it, right? You can't kill it. So you can't even hunt large game with the 22, because if it just it'll just run and bleed. Eventually it'll die, but it'll running.
It'll die because the bullet will bounce around and rattle through the body. Right.
So I always think it's very interesting that we keep going back to the size of these exit wounds, but we only talk about the AR. That's the only weapon, these rifles, carrying a Glock 40 caliber that does way more damage than that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, an AR exit wound is about the size of a quarter.
Yes.
Maybe even a nickel. But I would say probably more around the size of a quarter. But a 40 or a 45 is like a fucking apple.
Yes.
You get like you get an orange taken out of your body on the exit wound. That's the thing, is it's like reversed, right? The entrance wound is about the size of a nickel or a quarter, but the exit wound on a 40 is much bigger. Whereas with an AR, you'll have a hole that will be around like a dime size, and then come out the other side, and it will be
because
like a quarter.
It's not designed to tear apart. It's designed to stop. So it pierces and then goes out, right? And then that's it, drops you. Where these high caliber weapons are designed to destroy you. Like I could take your limb off with it. You know what I'm saying? So like you're not trying to destroy your game. You're trying to preserve it. You're not trying to have like half of it blown off on the opposite side of it. You're trying to preserve it. So I don't understand why this particular weapon is the weapon they're coming so hard for.
Because it's the one that would be the most easily used by the most common folk person. And I'm talking about not in a situation of self-defense. I'm talking about a situation of war.
Oh, so is it because we can get you from a distance?
They're thinking in terms, this is war preparation. Disarm your enemy.
Okay.
Get them so they don't have their rifles, so you can run in with your M4s. Because an M4 against a handgun is going to be a lot more easily like you said, they can get us from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Handgun's a lot more personal. You got to get a little bit closer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they're going for. That's what they want. But if they can go for all of it, they're going to go for all of it, because that's what they're trying to do. That's why you have JoJo making statements like high caliber 9mm, right? They're going for all of it, but the ones that are going to stick,
but it's so funny.
Going to be the rifle.
But it's funny because they even at a 9mm, that's still not a high caliber weapon.
Well, that's the joke. Yeah, that's the whole point, is that they're going for all of it. They're trying to take the whole pie any way that they can, even if it means using illogical arguments. But the one that's going to stick is the rifle.
So we can talk about it, right? California has strict gun laws, right? So there are guns you cannot own in the state of California. And there's pages upon pages of the list of the guns you cannot own in California. Yet it hasn't stopped gun crime.
Right. And those guns are still found in California. But yeah, I mean that's the whole purpose is it's again because this is the thing. They don't care if criminals are armed. They don't care because at the end of the day, criminals want the false notion of anarchy, right? When people
Right.
hear anarchy, they don't think of it as without a government where it can still be organized. They think of it as the purge. And that's what criminals want. Criminals want no holds barred. They want what was able to happen in 2020 with those BLM protests to just be life. They
Right.
want to be able to commit utter chaos. And so, if that's the case, if you're a tyrannical government or global entity that is wanting to take over the most powerful of a nation, you're not going to worry about the dissenters to law and order. They're going to work in your benefit. That's the same thing as like socialists, right? They're useful idiots to the plan,
Right.
right? They're
Right.
useful idiots. And
Right.
so that's why they don't care about the criminals being armed because, again, it's not about gun violence. This is war preparation at its finest. Disarm the public, get them to give up their rifles that would actually put a stand in between them and the entity that is, whether it be the United Nations, whether it be what other military, whether it be a foreign military that they invade us with, whatever the case may be, that automatically cuts that bridge to that gap between citizens and the military. If you can cut that bridge, then guess what? The military's over here sniping you without, and you can't even get across that gap to even get at them with your Glock.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's called Hoyt and Matthews. And I'm gonna say to my brown skin people, y'all might want to go Google those names and find out exactly what I'm talking about,
Right, right.
because I can get you in silence. You know what I'm saying? And we talked about it over the weekend. We talked about it, and ultimately, I guess for me, at this point, it's like we're coming into November, which we know is a small piece of where we're headed. But
Yep.
we also recognize, even after COVID, I mean, I'm flying from Florida back to Seattle, and there's literally a lady still wearing a mask, a shield, and goggles.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yep.
what I am more concerned about is what are those percentage of people, right? So,
I
what is
mean,
the percentage of people who are still in sheepland, right? Following along the trail. What are those percentage? Because those are the people who are the most dangerous, right? But I feel like those are not the people who own guns.
right, exactly. Those kind of people that are within that amount of fear, they don't even want to because they don't trust themselves, right? Because this goes
So
into the whole aspect of like mental health and that they have this, high amount of paranoia and all of these worries about society. Because I'm sure that that woman with all three of those components of a face shield, a mask, and goggles is probably an ally and is fighting against racial injustice and all of that. So they believe that the society around them is vile and that they should be feared, that they should fear it, and it puts them in a state of paranoia, so they won't own a gun because they can't trust themselves. A lot of lefties won't admit to that, but that's
right,
really what it is.
what is it? What it is, right? So when
Right.
we think about this school shooting, right, and we think about the narrative, right, it's already fizzling, right? So they
Hmm.
bring in this celebrity into, that was born there. And maybe that's why it happened there. Maybe because they knew there was a big name connected to that city, unlike any other city, right? Um, but they're not talking about the fact that in Dallas, they had kids at drag shows where people were stripping and putting tips and G strings. Okay, sorry, I know I ventured out there, but
It's cool. We got a piece of legislation getting put forth in Texas to ban minors from attending drag shows because of that.
Okay, but the fact that we even have to do that is stupid.
No, of course. I'm just saying that for like viewers, yes, there is a
Right?
recourse to that. It is
Yeah, but
absolutely
do you
vile and
understand what
should
I'm
never
saying though?
occurred.
Yeah, but do you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, again,
Yeah.
our children,
Right.
what is
Right.
the actual, there'll have to be many more tragic events to really push the narrative, right? Like you don't get to just have one or two and then think, because we've been down this road. This isn't our first rodeo, right?
Right.
When the resolve is not necessarily the guns, the resolve is how we protect the school in itself.
Right.
If you make access difficult, people leave it alone. When it's hard to get to, people, no one's like breaking into the bank, to break into the vault, to break into the safe, to break, you know what I'm saying? It's like they
Right.
just come in and they get what's right there at the at the teller, and then they leave.
Right.
So if you make it difficult for them to even get to them, then that is to me that's the resolve. The resolve is you send billions of dollars to Ukraine, but you can't send billions of dollars to make our schools safe.
Exactly. Well, and I think the biggest thing is that, Florida's really cracked the school shooter problem pretty much at its roots. We have armed security in the schools. Teachers are allowed to carry if they want to, right? And ever since that's been implemented, we've had two school shootings, and that's not even full shootings. That's also including an incident where a child was stopped from committing a shooting by the security, when prior to that we averaged I think or they had about 14 within
Hey,
a certain amount of time period of like some years. So they cracked it right at its roots, but nobody wants to talk about that, right? Because it's DeSantis.
right.
The media
Okay,
don't
so
want to
here,
talk about that because it's
you,
DeSantis that did that
so,
back in 2018.
right. So you bring that up, right? So you know how they're stopping all these parents, remember, from going into the school, right? You know what's interesting, right? If parents show up armed, right, and you have 100 parents in the parking lot armed, and they're like, let's do this. Why wouldn't you just go in? Right?
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you're ready now. You have the reinforcement, you have the backup, you have enough people to stop one person.
Right.
Why wouldn't you just go in collectively? What do you have to lose? If the person is saying, I don't care, my kid's inside this school, I'm going to die trying to save my kid, why are you stopping them? You have what you need. What tactical gear are you waiting on? Are you waiting on
Right.
what? SWAT? I don't know what you're waiting on, but if 100 parents armed is better than SWAT.
Right. Facts.
You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess for me, it's just kind of like crazy to think that like at this point in the game, if you have babies inside, why are we following rules? What rules are there to protect your children? What are the rules?
Right.
One person in a school. The moment that you stop hearing gunfire popping, there was windows, there was a whole lot of things, right? We're done with this. Shut it down. If you can
Right.
save one life, you save the one life. You don't allow somebody just a free range at you don't let the wolf into the chicken coop and then be like, okay, stop when you're full. Like
Right.
that doesn't even make sense to me. The whole thing doesn't even
Right.
make sense, right? So it's like,
Right.
he's going in there. You saw it. And what cop just stands around putting up yellow, tasing and tackling parents?
Right. While the but as well, why are they trying to make a perimeter while the shooter is in a
That's cool.
building? Yeah, while they're in a building filled with children. That's not them being kitty cornered or being cornered in an area where you can isolate them. They're not isolated. They are around complete innocent civilians that are completely at the whim of their, of the shooter. So it's like, I just don't, it just, again, like I said, this whole situation is just a giant fucking question mark. And it's been that since it happened. And
So,
that's like,
you know what else I question? How did he barricade himself in a classroom? How?
right.
What did he
I mean,
do?
I would assume, I would just to kind of play devil's advocate, I would assume, desks or chairs,
Are you
something of that
fucking joking?
nature.
That's not a barricade. I mean, at this point, I mean, I can understand maybe not wanting to just like kick the door down and like shoot people that are, like trying to shoot
Right.
him. I get that, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, at this point, you have everything to gain and nothing to lose because there are
Right.
babies inside, right?
Right.
So the idea is just to stop as much tragedy as possible because there's people's babies inside of the school. And why are you standing here like, they're robbing a grocery store and no one's in it? Like the whole scenario and the whole situation just doesn't make sense. And the fact that he's
Right.
able to quote unquote barricade himself, and we're not getting a lot of information.
Right. And he barricaded himself, but yet the father that was on the border patrol was able to execute him.
Yeah.
And don't usual classroom doors open outward
Out.
into the hallway?
Yes. Yes. And you know what, Mikey? You know as well as I know, when you swing that door open, he's going to look.
Right.
You have the advantage of being on the other side of the door. He doesn't even know you're there.
Right.
So as soon as you swing the door open, he's going to look at you. He's going to be unprepared. Even if he
Right.
gets a couple shots off, he's done. That's
Exactly.
why the father was able to get him, pick him, and the father put a key in the door and opened it. I mean, what did he do?
See, and let's talk about the father. Let's talk about that sequence of events. The father's at a barber getting his hair cut. Hears about the shooting taking place blocks away from the barber shop, decides to get up out of the barber chair mid haircut, borrows the barber's shotgun, then goes to the school and saves the day. What? And he was let in. He was let in.
But
And
no
and,
other
and,
parents were.
and right. And I guess now what they're claiming is that because he was a federal agent, and apparently now they're saying there was 2 federal agents that were on the scene. Not just him from Border Patrol, but there was also somebody from HHS that was there as well.
So why did they allow them to go in, but the cops themselves did not go in? Why did the cops themselves have to stand out? So you're telling me the person that had control over the scene, this moron that just got elected to the city council, he can't tell these officers who weren't in uniform, who are off duty, what to do?
Right.
Even though it's his scene, they can
Right.
just do whatever they want.
Right.
And you're right, Mikey. Most school
And it
doors swing open.
right.
Outward,
Exactly.
That's why
Right.
I asked, how was he barricaded? What did he lock it? Because if he can lock it from the inside, every teacher should have locked it from the inside.
Exactly.
Or did he
See?
come? I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
it
I
just
100%.
seems
Yeah.
odd. And how did he get in? How did this dad get in? He put the key in the door and opened it. And he
Right.
pushed all the chairs out the way. What did he
Right.
do? How did he get past the barricade?
Right.
How was he able to pick him off? Why we don't know that, Mikey? Did you
None of it.
Google that?
Yeah. None of it makes sense. And isn't it just so convenient too that feds are
Did
the
it?
ones that ended the situation?
Mm-hmm.
It relied on the federal departments to end the situation. So, hey, still need that federal government, right? Can't trust your local municipalities.
Right.
Let's make sure you got to believe in Big Brother to come in and save the day, not your
And
community.
why did it take over an for backup to roll through? Like, where were they coming from? Houston? I mean,
Right,
Where were they?
right.
Because if it
They
takes that long to get there, you shouldn't be waiting.
Right, right. And again, like I think what I just said too, it's a really perfect. I think that's a really big point that people need to focus on is isn't it just convenient? What better way to dissuade all arguments of how to get things back to the state level, which is like kind of a 2-for-1, right? They're kind of getting a 2-for-1 with like Roe v. Wade, and how people want to rely upon their states for the way that their
Yes.
legislation and judicial and protection of others will be, and rather not the Fed. And then you also have let's not trust your local community policing, and let's make it a federal thing because the Feds came in and saved the day.
And I'm not gonna lie, the location of where this happened is really suspicious too. It's like, the outskirts, like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like heavily populated like normal, and the fact that none of these parents outside of the border patrol parent was carrying in the state of Texas
In
is
Texas, there's like I said, there's just so many questions. Anybody that's not Anybody that thinks that this is just a cut and dry situation and then now all that needs to be done is a conversation about guns is a fucking troglodyte. You are a cave dweller. You do not understand how extensive this goes. You cannot hear all of these questions around this event and be like, oh, yeah, but it's clearly still the guns.
well, and I'm gonna say this, and maybe I'm a psycho parent. But if I went up to that school and they kept me from going in, I'm not lying to you. I probably would have ran over police officers with my car.
Right. Well, expected. Fucking expected. It's your children. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, and this is the other
Like,
thing
I
too, is
would
like
not
the
just be
videos of
okay
the
just
parents.
standing there, like standing on the outside, police just standing there. This person's inside and I'm just there. No, I would just get in my car and run you over because you're going to get out of the
Right.
way.
And even some of the parents that were becoming emotional, not all of them were that emotional. What the fuck was going on there? Why was not every single parent screaming at the top of their lungs and all trying to bum rush the school? What the fuck?
Well, and that's what's weird because it's like I feel like as parents, I'd been like, look, I'm going in. What y'all doing? We gonna go
Right.
around this backside, jump over this fence. I'm like, dude, I'm about to get in my fucking Tahoe right now. Y'all more than welcome to get in it with me, but I'm about to run these motherfuckers over. I don't even care at this point. Like, I don't care. What are they gonna do? Charge me with running them over? Fine, I don't
Right.
care. If I can
Hey,
get my kid out of here, I don't care. Like, I'm willing to go down in flames to
right.
do anything possible because they'll get out of the way. If I start driving towards them and honking at them, they'll move.
Right.
They'll move. School, they're gonna have to
Right.
shoot me. They're gonna have to shoot me. Like, that's the only way you're gonna
Yeah,
stop me. I see that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're gonna stop me, you're gonna have to fucking kill me.
Kill me.
Exactly.
Kill
Yeah, exactly.
me! I mean,
Oh,
seriously. I mean, because it just doesn't make sense. Like the fact that that crowd was so controlled,
right.
knowing what's going on in that school, knowing their children are inside of that school, is dumbfounding.
No, yeah, it is. It is. Do you mind if we possibly wrap up? Because I got to use the bathroom
Let's
real
go.
quick.
Let's go.
So,
We're out of here.
okay,
Mikey
perfect.
has to potty.
I didn't want to just leave you hanging by yourself.
No,
Thank you guys for tuning
thanks for
in.
coming. We'll talk
Great
to
to be
you.
back. Love you guys so much.